What if I told you that some of Hollywood's toughest action icons were silently battling a deadly illness that the world knew little about? In an era where the disease carried shame and silence, these icons faced a heartbreaking choice: speak out and risk their careers, or stay silent and live in fear. Some of them fought until the very end, their struggles only revealed after they were gone. Here are 20 legendary action stars whose shocking battles with AIDS were kept hidden from the world until it was too late. Number 20, Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was the epitome of the Hollywood leading man, handsome, strong, and adored by millions. But behind the picture-perfect image lay a devastating secret. He was battling AIDS. In the 1980s, when the disease was shrouded in fear and misunderstanding, Hudson's diagnosis was kept hidden from the public. His death in 1985 shattered the carefully constructed facade of Hollywood and opened the world's eyes to the deadly epidemic. Hudson's passing forced the entertainment industry to confront the harsh truth about AIDS, changing the way people viewed the disease forever. It wasn't just the loss of a beloved actor, it was the tragic end of a man who had to live a lie to survive in an unforgiving world. His death marked a turning point in Hollywood's silence about AIDS, leaving a legacy that still resonates today. Number 19, Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins was the king of psychological horror, known worldwide for his chilling portrayal of Norman Bates in Psycho. But beneath the eerie charm of his on-screen persona, Perkins was hiding a secret that would eventually consume him. He had been living with HIV. Diagnosed in the late 1980s, Perkins kept his illness a closely guarded secret, continuing to work and maintain his public image until his health began to deteriorate. He died of AIDS-related pneumonia in 1992, just a few months after revealing his condition to the public. Perkins' death was a tragic reminder of the hidden battles many in Hollywood faced, living in fear of their careers being destroyed by the truth. His story is one of courage, pain, and a system that pushed its stars to the brink of silence. Number 18, Brad Davis. Brad Davis was a raw, intense actor, best known for his haunting role in Midnight Express. But behind his powerful performances, Davis was fighting a personal demon that would overshadow his career, a secret HIV diagnosis. Struggling with addiction and the stigma of being diagnosed with a disease that was still misunderstood, Davis fought to keep his private life hidden. His health deteriorated in the early 1990s, and he tragically died in 1991 at the age of 41. Davis's death was a painful reminder of the devastation AIDS brought to Hollywood's elite, leaving behind a legacy marked by both his incredible talent and the hidden battles he faced. His fight against the disease and the stigma that came with it was a battle fought in silence, one that ultimately claimed his life. Number 17, Denholm Elliott. Denholm Elliott was a beloved and respected actor, known for his roles in Indiana Jones and A Room with a View. On screen, he was the embodiment of the charming, seasoned professional. Off-screen, however, Elliott was silently battling AIDS. His death in 1992, after years of keeping his illness hidden, sent shockwaves through the film industry. Fans who had admired him for his wit, grace, and remarkable performances were blindsided by the tragic reality that had remained behind closed doors. Elliott's struggle was one shared by many in Hollywood, forced to live in the shadows due to the stigma of HIV. His death was not just a loss of talent, but a symbol of the unspeakable pain many faced in silence during that era. Number 16, Merritt Butrick. Merritt Butrick was a rising star, most famous for his role in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. But his career, filled with promise and potential, was tragically cut short when he was diagnosed with HIV. At just 29 years old, Butrick died of AIDS-related complications in 1989, leaving behind a legacy that never had the chance to fully unfold. His untimely death was a stark reminder of the young lives lost to the epidemic, and how many bright futures were extinguished before they could shine. In Hollywood, where youth and beauty are often prized above all else, Buttrick's passing marked a heartbreaking moment, revealing the devastating impact of a disease that didn't discriminate based on age or talent. Number 15. Dak Rambo. Dak Rambo was the picture of a television action hero, known for his roles in The Rookies and Dallas. But his life took a courageous turn when he publicly revealed his HIV status in the early 1990s, something few stars dared to do at the time. Rambo's bravery in the face of the disease shattered the silence surrounding AIDS in Hollywood. He continued to work despite his diagnosis, becoming an advocate for awareness and change. In 1994, Rambo passed away from complications related to AIDS, but his public revelation paved the way for others in Hollywood to come forward. His courage not only helped break the silence, but also gave voice to a community that had been silenced for too long. Number 14. Gene Anthony Ray. Best known as Leroy in fame, Ray became an icon of raw energy and talent in the 1980s, but fame came fast and hit hard. Behind the scenes, Ray battled addiction, poverty, and the heavy burden of hiding who he was. When he died in 2003 at just 41, it was reported as a stroke, but the truth soon surfaced. AIDS had taken another star. His story was heartbreaking, a reflection of how stigma and silence crushed so many during the height of the epidemic. Ray had once danced like nothing could stop him, but in the end, it was the world's judgment and fear that caught up. Number 13. Michael Jeter. Michael Jeter, with his quirky charm and unforgettable presence, left his mark in films like Jurassic Park 3 and The Green Mile. Known for playing oddball roles with heart, he brought joy to millions. But behind the scenes, Jeter was living with HIV, something he kept private for most of his life. He eventually died in 2003 from AIDS-related complications, and the news stunned his fans. The man who could bring a scene to life with just a glance was gone too soon. Jeter's death was another blow to an industry that had already lost so many to the same silent killer. Number 12. Anthony Hamilton. He had the look, the talent, and the charm, but AIDS brought his rise to a heartbreaking stop. Anthony Hamilton was a rising star in the 1980s and 1990s, known for his handsome looks and strong screen presence. He had all the makings of a Hollywood leading man, but just as his career was picking up, Hamilton was diagnosed with HIV. Opportunities began to vanish, and soon his life spiraled out of the spotlight. He died in 1995, barely making a ripple in an industry that had once welcomed him. Hamilton's death was another quiet tragedy, the kind Hollywood kept in the shadows. He could have been the next big thing, but instead, he became another name lost to silence. Number 11. Tom Fuccello. Fuccello was a familiar face on television, especially in soap operas and action-packed shows throughout the 70s and 80s. With rugged charm and a steady presence, he seemed unstoppable. But in the early 90s, his life took a tragic turn when he was diagnosed with AIDS. He passed away in 1993, and like so many others, his death was largely ignored by the industry. Fuccello was part of a generation of actors whose lives were quietly stolen by a disease Hollywood refused to talk about. His story reminds us that behind every polished headshot and action role, there was often a man fighting a terrifying and lonely battle. Number 10. Tom Villard. He wasn't just another face in horror and action. Tom Villard was one of the few brave enough to speak the truth. Villard starred in cult favorites and thrillers, building a steady career in Hollywood. But in the early 1990s, when most were still silent, he made the courageous choice to publicly reveal his AIDS diagnosis. It was rare, it was bold, and it was risky. He appeared on television and spoke openly, hoping to change minds in an era filled with fear and misinformation. Sadly, Villard died in 1994, but not before becoming a symbol of strength and honesty. His voice helped open the door for others to speak. In a town built on make-believe, Tom Villard chose truth. Number 9. Steve Tracy. Best known as Percival Dalton on Little House on the Prairie, Tracy brought warmth and depth to the screen. But beyond the family-friendly roles, he was fighting something far more serious. Diagnosed with AIDS in the mid-1980s, Tracy faced the illness head-on during a time when very few did. He died in 1986, one of the earliest public figures in Hollywood to succumb to the disease. His passing deeply affected co-stars and fans alike. Tracy's death wasn't just a loss, it was a wake-up call. He lived and died in a world that made it dangerous, to be honest. But even in silence, his courage spoke volumes. Number 8. Kevin Peter Hall. Standing over 7 feet tall, Hall was unforgettable as the fearsome predator in Predator and the gentle giant in Harry and the Hendersons. But his towering presence couldn't protect him from a tragic twist of fate. After receiving a blood transfusion following a car accident, Hall contracted HIV. It wasn't something he could have seen coming, and it wasn't something he could beat. In 1991, he died of AIDS-related pneumonia at just 35 years old. His death was sudden, shocking, and deeply unfair. The man who brought monsters to life on screen was taken by a monster the world still didn't fully understand. Number 7. Robert Reed. As Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch, Robert Reed was the image of the perfect father. But beyond the wholesome scripts and fatherly advice, Reed lived a life full of silent struggles. He appeared in many action-packed TV roles over the years, showing off a range that fans often overlooked. In 1992, he died of colon cancer, but it was later revealed that he was also HIV positive. The truth stunned fans and castmates alike. Reed had kept his illness and his sexuality hidden from the world, knowing that one revelation could destroy everything he had built. His death was a tragic reminder of how fear and stigma forced even the most beloved stars into silence. Number 6. Howard Rollins Jr. He was a rising star with undeniable talent. But Howard Rollins Jr.'s career and life unraveled in the shadows. Best known for his role in the Heat of the Night, Rollins brought power and grace to every performance. He earned critical acclaim early on, even an Oscar nomination, and seemed destined for long-lasting fame. But personal demons soon crept in: addiction, legal troubles, and a growing health crisis. In 1996, Rollins died from AIDS-related complications. At just 46, his story ended far too soon. The once promising actor had battled not just illness, but also an industry that wasn't ready to face the truth. His fall from stardom wasn't just a personal tragedy. It reflected how Hollywood often turned its back on those it didn't want to understand. Number 5. John Curry. After winning Olympic gold in 1976, Curry became a global sensation. His artistry and athleticism broke boundaries in the sports world. But behind the graceful performances was a man hiding his truth. As one of the first major athletes to be openly gay, Curry faced harsh criticism and rejection. In the early 90s, he was diagnosed with AIDS, and his health quickly declined. He died in 1994, just 44 years old. Though not a Hollywood action star in the traditional sense, Curry's influence reached far into the entertainment world. His death was another painful reminder of the toll the epidemic took on brilliant, brave souls who dared to be different. Number 4. Klaus Nomi. With his alien-like appearance and operatic voice, Nomi wasn't your typical Hollywood figure, yet his performances captivated audiences, blending music, theater, and film in ways no one had seen before. As his fame grew in the early 80s, so did a mysterious illness that doctors couldn't explain. It was AIDS, at a time when the world barely knew its name. In 1983, Klaus Nomi became one of the first celebrities to die from AIDS-related complications. He was just 39. His death shook the arts community and highlighted how the disease didn't care about fame or talent. Nomi's life was full of color, drama, and defiance, and yet it ended in silence. Number 3. Paul Shenar. In films like Scarface and The Secret of NIMH, Shenar brought unforgettable intensity to his roles. He was the kind of actor who stole scenes with just a glance, but while the cameras loved his dark charisma, Shenar kept his real life carefully hidden. In 1989, he died of AIDS-related complications, just as his career was gaining real traction. His death was quiet, barely making headlines. Another example of how Hollywood buried uncomfortable truths. Paul Shenar deserved more roles, more recognition, more time, but the silence around his illness speaks volumes about an era too afraid to speak at all. Number 2. Charles Ludlam. Ludlam wasn't your average actor. He was bold, flamboyant, and unapologetically outrageous. As the creator of the ridiculous theatrical company, he challenged norms and blended drama, comedy, and activism in unforgettable ways. He crossed into film and TV, leaving an unmistakable mark. But in 1987, Ludlam died of AIDS-related complications at just 44 years old. His passing wasn't just a loss to the stage, it was a gut punch to the entire creative world. Ludlam had dared to live openly and honestly when so few could. His art demanded attention, but even someone as loud and fearless as Ludlam couldn't drown out the silence that surrounded AIDS at the time. Number 1. Liberace. Few performers lit up a room like Liberace. With glittering costumes and a showman's flair, he was one of the most famous entertainers in the world. But despite his flamboyant persona, Liberace never publicly acknowledged his sexuality. When he died in 1987, the official cause was heart failure. But the truth came out. He had died from AIDS-related complications. His family denied it at first, desperate to protect the image he had carefully built. It was only after pressure from the press that the truth was finally confirmed. Liberace's story is one of tragic irony, a man who lived in the spotlight yet couldn't live his truth. These 20 action icons didn't just face a deadly disease, they faced a society that turned its back on them, an industry that demanded silence, and a legacy that could have vanished in the shadows. How many more stars lived in fear, their truth buried with them? If this moved you, don't let their stories fade. Like, comment, and share to keep their names alive, and make sure the world remembers what they were really fighting for.